I believe monotheism is gonna prevail and it's gonna win. It's gonna take over again, even though it's on the like on the loose today. When you look at the world and the ideas in it, even monotheistic religions, I have here the three holy books of the Jewish, the Christian, and the Muslims, and I've chosen one of these three as like funny cartoonic symbol for it. It's it's like just to give it a symbol. And I will be back to those later. But I believe that monotheism will prevail because it's such a radical idea. The radical event about it, the way it has pushed itself into the world with these prophets and these books, and letting people holding on to it, even though it's been opposed from every corner. The Old Testament has been ravished over and over again for its contradictions and troublesome content, and the rabbis and their lifestyle has been also been persecuted over time, sometimes by fellow monotheists, like the Christians who persecuted them for not believing in the new God that they rejected as not a God. In that sense, the Jewish were trying to protect that old God. And you see the same story with the Quran, trying to put the two old books on the shelf and say, this is the way you follow me, and there is no idea in going after the older scriptures. And so the fight has been ongoing since. So you would look at these books and their content and their troublesome, challengeable ideas, and you will see that people should push away from them, as they are many doing many times, or just don't understand them, or doesn't seem to have an impact on life and reality. They see them as something from the past that doesn't fit in the modern and technological advanced time where humans are better off without this middle age idea. But they will prevail, and they will be back in people's life, and they will stay. Why? Well, for one reason, because they have this radical element in them, saying there is only one and only one true God. Even the Christian believe. I know it's hard for the Muslims to hear this and hard for the Jewish to hear this, but I've studied the Christian literature as well, and talked in 10 years with Christian missionaries and high spiritual people, and they believe in the one God. They just believe that he conceived part of him in Jesus and through Mary. That's the story they are discussing with or fighting over with the other groups. But all three believe in the radical idea of one God. When the Christians came to places, and the Muslims too, in Africa and in the jungle of South America, they tried to change those beliefs that people had by letting them turn from worshiping a stone or the feet of the ruler or a tree or something, and turn towards the heavenly God, the God who created everything, who's behind everything. This basic idea goes through all three religions and is also found in the Ahura Mazd religion too. It's also found with the Druze. It's also found with other groups. But I'm now focusing on the main three religious groups, because they hold this idea very strongly and very highly. And I must say that if you take this radical idea and see where it takes you, you will see that people will be fighting it, because it will challenge something basic deep in humans, that the freedom to think about life in different manners. So I can have one belief, my neighbor can see the world in a total different aspect. He can see it as a result of some coincidence, and I see it as a result of a creator, and the third one see it as a result of the first fire that started somewhere, and the fourth has a fourth story, and fifth and sixth story. We have so many stories we can tell. And so the radical idea of monotheism, saying, listen, you can have any story you want and tell yourself that, but that won't make it true. The only true is that there is very intelligent creator with great wisdom and knowledge in detail that put all this into motion, and you will not and never be able as a human being to reach that God or to understand how he did it. You can see signs of it, you can understand part of it, but you will never be able to get to that source with your human limited capacity. And this is what we actually challenge also in science today. People are sometimes driven by we can break the borders of God and we can enter His kingdom and we can take Him down in a way or another, and so um, it's the biggest challenge that monotheism maybe has been facing. They are fighting internally, and the world is pushing into other directions in many kinds of beliefs or disbelief, or maybe just a kind of um, lack of seeking the truth or understanding. And very, very few people today are going in that direction because we've become so many that it's easy for the many to just overwhelm those few who goes out to try to seek the truth and maybe not don't even find it really, and maybe it's not out there as the Oriental religions would tell us, and those religions, Buddhism and Hinduism, I see them as well as part of the monotheistic like framework, because even though they don't say there is one God and they accept that people can have visions of gods in different shapes and pictures, they go back to say there is this one source that will in that like will overcome everything. It will be the source of everything in the end. You will go back to it if you find nirvana, and the Brahman will take you out of life. So there is also this source in the Eastern religion that takes everything back to one ununderstandable source that we have to grasp while we're here. We have to become conscious, and we can grasp it within, not without. We don't need the books, we don't need the stories of the prophets. We need to find our stories from inside and go with the gurus. They become the prophets. So and they be, the stories of the Eastern religion become the path and the way to show us where it's going. But wherever you look and however you look, you find that monotheism comes back to same idea, one source of creation, one thing that's keeping it all together. We can go in all directions. We can go wild as much as we want, but this radical idea has prevailed and stays prevailing. So today, when I look at the Muslim missionaries or the cross with the priest, and I look at the Jewish trying to really manifest their way of life, I see in different shapes and aspects, looking at it from above, not from part of it, that they are in their own ways trying to bring the message of the one God to the people they're in touch with. And that's very strong and that's very radical, even though they try to eradicate each other sometimes, doesn't understand each other, don't want to understand each other, and like children get over in that fight, they still keep to that idea that only one God and his son as the savior, or only one God and Muhammad is his prophet, the way to the saving, or only one God and the holy text and the blood of the Israelis are the prevailing tribe that will keep the one God for forever high above everything else. So this radical idea is gonna make monotheism, despite all the pushbacks, all the troubles, prevail, because people need this kind of organization. When we go too wild, we go back and see, well, this has become a jungle, too much a jungle. So we need to organize again. We need to find this source of belief that makes us like pull together. And then we go back, each culture go back to its roots and sources. And we are back to those original civilization values that came from the Middle Ages. So this is one argument. Another one I will speak of is that the way it organizes social life. You find in the monotheistic religions some strange ways of organizing life that we in modern time not really accept or cope with or can easily take in. But many people go and change their life towards the monotheistic religions because sometimes they've gone too far out in their social life and go back and find it very organizing and very well in the structure. Like if you are a son or a daughter of a Catholic, my family are partly Catholic from the Maronite tribe. So I know a little bit about how it felt being that older generation, the grandmas and their mothers, living with that organized religion. Only one man, one family, one God, one belief, one set of value, of goodness, of not hurting others, of keeping to yourself. All these virtues that we keep hearing and get repeated in the monotheistic religions, they are carrying it up. to a level that it can become the organizer of societies, and it has been. If you are from a Muslim background, like I also am, you will see that the organizing force of the Islamic values and thoughts has kept people from spinning too much out of what can you say, the orbit of social adherence, social acceptance. Of course, we have a lot of things going on in these years, especially, that makes it seems like a joke in many ways, or like hypocrisy. Really, many people within these religious frames in Islam are living a hypocrisy without any measures, because they cannot really go and pursue their thoughts and way of life and ideas as they want them to, because of the so-called organizing force that is pushing it back, or forbidding it, or persecuting it. You find the same in communities in the Christians and Jewish, but in those communities they have lost the control over the society as a whole. That hasn't kicked in the Islamic world as yet, because they have been pushing it back. Maybe it will kick in, because great forces are working on that, to change it. I don't know who these forces are, how they work, but I can just see that there are trends going into the Muslim world, like it is in the Christian and Jewish world, to pull that organizing factor apart, to say that you can organize your religious group, but you cannot dominate society with your ideas anymore. It's a polycultural, multi ethnical, multi what can you say, multi value society, multi ethics. And so in that sense, the Islamic core is also being challenged very, very hard, to open up their gates, to let the rulers and the people who are leading society in politics minimize the impact of the religious, what can you say, control, the religious belief. It has already kicked in many places, but there is still some kind of wall standing. If you go to the Muslim world, if you go to Indonesia, or whether you go to Morocco, or what can you say, Egypt, or Saudi Arabia and those neighboring countries, you will still find that wall. You cannot just do whatever you like, even though you want to do it. So you go and do it online, maybe, or you go and find a secret place to hide in. The same can be said about Iran and the fraction of Islam that has ruled it there. But tippling all these old regimes, because they also become a symbol of something people cannot live with, that is political tyranny and political suppression, unfortunately also leads to the demise of the social and organizational control of the religious, what can you say, ideas. So Islam is getting challenged as well, like the Christian communities. Like in the West, wherever you go, you find Christian communities holding together, trying to follow the steps of Jesus, the way of the disciples, trying to follow the more or less the conservative views that are in the New Testament, and they look somehow sometimes to the Old Testament to keep going with the family values, with the values of society, values of the individual. But you can see the whole society around them is not organized like that anymore. It's organized on laws that has traits from the religious ideas. Like if you go to the old Jewish laws, and you see what we call the Ten Commandments, who are in reality 500 commandments. If you open the Old Testament, which I have here, and I've read it in detail some years ago, you can find that these commandments that comes to the modern juridical system, the way we form the laws today in secular societies, are still based on the same ethics, but with a lot of changes, with a lot of differentiation. You can see the ways of trading, usury, how people can agree on things. They differ a lot. And the same goes for the Christian communities. They cannot enforce their laws on society as they could in the old days. Everybody has open on Sundays today. It's not the closed and the dull day where people just sit home or meet with family. Even the shops do not close anymore, and so on. And you go to the Muslim countries and you find the same traits still pushing on. But somehow all three religions seems to keep getting back with their values and views to the same organizational ideas that we have to organize under one God, one set of rules, and one set of social values. We cannot just let people run in all directions, do whatever they like, because that will be a wilderness without any measure. And the secular law is not going to do it well enough because it doesn't stem from the all knowing God. It doesn't stem from a source that knows the human nature better than it knows itself. And this is the fight that's going on with monotheism and around it and about it. That is the secular idea that we can separate the law from the religion. And we do not need to get the laws from the religion. We can do them by experience. Whatever works will become the law. Whatever seems natural and whatever seems logical for the rulers can become the law, or whatever people vote on. And monotheism in its core, even though it's pushed back these ideas and many does not dare speak them out all the time, they push back and they say no, it has to come from the source that created the humans, and this source has spoken to us in these texts. And then they are challenged by scientists and by criticizing voices, telling them that, well, what you have written there is not actually true. It's mixed stories. It's suppressive. It's not according to human nature. And to be honest, I have studied that comparison. There is something about that talk that in all three religions, the way they deal with the human and the human both freedom and restraint and organizing force doesn't always seem to stem with the just natural way of being human. So sometimes we tend to say, as humanists, like say, oh my God, can't we just leave all that behind and just go to what feels natural? What is natural for the humans is just like, let's just be it and do it. And I have seen that in the Nordic and Scandinavian countries back in the hippie movement time. I've not seen it with my eyes, but through documentaries and people I know, they really believed in that idea that wherever you go naked on the beach, or you go to the priest in the church, or you go to a temple, you have your personal freedom to do that as long as you're not hurting anyone. This is what it's all about. Don't hurt yourself and others. And as long as you're not doing that, you don't need more. And the organizing law should be minimal. It shouldn't have all these detailed laws as the jungle of cultural secularism has reached to today. This bureaucracy of democracy, they say today that the EU has millions and millions of law packages and regulations that nobody can like understand. You need lawyers of specialized education to understand it all. So it becomes too complicated when man is trying to rule the world with so many regulating laws, because they find out, oh wow, we can't let the humans just run around as they like. We have to control them more and more, and to do that we need the law to do that. And so there is a hole or a gap where monotheism will push back and will get back once it's out of the cage. It's a caged tiger, and once it's out of the cage, it will go back with a big advertisement. I'm really saying this for the future because I can see it. It's going to happen. Um, and it will advertise again for the sets of laws that it has in the holy books, holy scriptures, each in his own part of the world, but they will nonetheless say the same. And then they will fight, and then they will go to the borders and try to take the borders over. It's so stupid, I'm sorry to say, Mr. Rabbi and Mr. Imam and Mr. Priest. And your kings and rulers behind you. It's so stupid because you're going to say the same message just in your own area. If you look at the history of the Middle Ages and you see when the Christians got pushed back, they pushed back again and they won over the secular idea and took it over from within. Even though it's in a distorted manner, as you might say, the Jewish and the Muslims who say it's in a distorted manner, no matter, but they took over again. And they pushed forward with a society that was built on these religious values that made people feel safe and feel organized and feel like had the surplus. When you look at the monks, even today, you see those traits: the self-discipline, going to build places where they can live in solitary. They're trying to put vegetables in the earth, try to remove the pesticides. It doesn't do a lot of things that stems from that organizing force. And the same you can say about the Muslim communities. Even though you can see them as very conservative and you don't like them, and you think they are all part of that terrorist ideology you hate and so on. But if you look deep, you will find the same traits that you have in your Christian community as conservative, because they are pushing for the same goals. They are organized by the same godly force that makes things work out in a different manner. And the same with the Jewish. You find the Jewish religious people, even though they can seem very weird to us and to many people, and I must admit, some religious practices are weird, and some religious people are really got so far that they become very strange. And they leave like a reason and logic behind just to follow something written in a detailed text by someone who explained another text, who explained another text. And that's a jungle in itself as well. So I'm not saying the religious ideas that are in the monotheistic ones are not a jungle as well, and has become. And that's why people left them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have left them. But the jungle that is forming outside them is gonna be the hole to pull people back to the idea that we need something to organize around. And then they will find it, when the tiger is out of the cage, as a way to say, we will give you the force of the law in the holy book that is neither too detailed and complex and bureaucratized, and neither too little so you don't know in which way to live and go. You are here to worship the one God, and you are here to build societies of small nuclear families. You are here to organize around the survival of the humans by using the earth and the minerals and whatever goods we have in earth and in space. So we use our minds in science to go for that. And so you find these religious people also occupied with science, occupied with like what they call healthy science, science that can bring us further and not just going in all directions, just trying to do things that can tear down our structure. And so when they restrain and persecute people who are going outside the structure, it's not because of the persecution itself, even though it has been dark in parts of the history, and it has been dark. Oh my God, yeah, we know that from the name of the rose, from the history of the Inquisition, from the history of the Muslim conquerors in Europe and other places, North Africa. We know that from the Christian missionaries and the way they intolerantly put people to believe. History has digged all that up for us. But despite all that, there has also been great forces among these religions to say, we're not persecuting the person for his beliefs, but because he's making damage to the organized social structure. So if you go around in hippie clothes and want to just be on drugs all day, and you neglect your family and your responsibility on building a new family so life can go on and so on, and living organized, you are damaging the nuclear structure of the family and the social organizational force that stems from how life can preserve itself and have all the surpluses that comes from the idea of organizing. And that's why they persecuted, they lash out on it. And it took over, of course, it became a jungle. Then every group they didn't like, even from their own, they started like persecuting them, using the same mechanisms to persecute people. That's why many people today can be atheist, humanist, or rejecting the power of religion. They're afraid this will come back and haunt us again, like it has done for centuries. And I understand that idea, even though I can't fully work with it to minimize the three religions, because they have this core idea of the one God that's otherwise lost. There is no other place you find the idea so clear, so strong than in these three texts. And the Eastern religions, you can find the traits of it, of course, and the source of it. But, and especially the Quran has this repeated so many times that you can't believe it. I know Christians don't read the Quran. They believe, oh, this is a foolish liar's book. And they call themselves enlightened. And the same with the Jews. Maybe they go and don't read the New Testament and don't understand the Christian message. I'm not saying they should accept each other's differences there. It's natural. They should fight over it. I guess this is how life is. But they should understand that there are messages that all goes back to one source saying there is one true God. And this one true God is limitless, cannot be understood in fully. We cannot set descriptions up that we make up from our minds. We just know this God is the source, is there. And so I know it's not logical or scientific to say I can pray and I see the prayers work in my life. But this is exactly what these three religions believe, that you can pray to that God who made everything and you will find the value of it in your life. You will find the grace of it in your life. That's what makes people believe too. They see this in their daily life. They try it out. And when they try it out and see, well, it didn't fail, there must be some logic, hidden logic behind it, even though the astrologer and astronomers and other scientific physicists doesn't see it that way because they never tried it maybe. And some of them convert too and go back to say there is a source bigger, because it leaves you in awe. At the same time, at the very same time, you can say that giving evidence for the one God is beyond our ability. And so when Carl Sagan speaks about these things, that, well, the universe leaves you in awe, yes, and everything from the nucleus to the biggest astronomical space we can see out there and stars leaves us in awe. We haven't created this. We know that for a fact. Nobody has claimed they or it has created it besides that God. That one God can keep claiming in the Old Testament, New Testament, and what some will provokingly call the Last Testament of the Quran. Anyhow, it will be claimed again and again, I am the God, I am the creator, turn to me. Very simply. In many words they're using, and different words, more beautiful poetic words. But this claim has come from these sources. And you cannot reject it. You cannot just say, oh, I can't see him, I can't see the evidence, I have to reject. That's not scientific. Scientific is to say, I will abstain from confirming because I can't see the clear evidence of your claim, but I cannot either put a definite answer beside my conclusion. Like if you say there is no rain, you are making a positive claim that there is no rain, and you have to somehow prove it. You cannot just say, I cannot see it's raining, that means there is no rain. That's not a scientific expression. And the same goes for these three religions. They have to prove the one God, and they keep trying. They have written books about it and dealt with scientific issues just to prove the one God. And this is the very, very deep strength of these religions. You see them fight back and come back again and again. Look at these cathedrals all over Europe that had been fighting weather and people and wars for centuries to just stand strong and tall and show you to look up, to make you look up and make you go into the church and share the chants and share the voice of those who are praying, the voice of those who are calling the one God and his light. And the same you find in the Jewish, you find in the Muslim. I've said that several times. I have seen the same traits. And this is what's the nucleus of these religions. And even though they are being pushed back and a lot of things are being said that makes people unaware of it, they have the ability to talk to the average person, and they have the ability to talk to the very intelligent person. They have the ability to talk to the hearts, like they have the ability to talk to the minds. And the trouble people faces in life as we live it makes them at one point or another turn or think about turning to these religions for help, for advice, or to the source of them, to the spirituality in them, to get some sort of guidance. And if you are from an Eastern mystical religion, like in the Far East, you will be turning to the spirituality within there to go deeper and deeper and find that source of light. One source of light, again, one Brahman, one creator, one source. They don't want to say it's a personal God. You can take any shape you like in these gods. If you hear Sadhguru, you hear that between the lines. He say, we don't need the one God. We don't need the monotheistic God. We don't need all these personal God descriptions. He's not become human. He's not the one Muhammad described. He's the one the one Jewish wants us to understand. But if you dig deep in what he's also saying, you will find that he's turning people's spirituality towards that organizing source. of their inner engineering and their outer engineering and their mind and mindfulness and yoga creativity and all that. I know they won't accept that because every group of these see that they hold the one and definite truth, and that's why I checked out from all these roads and ways and stuck with the Abrahamic way, as I call it. Abraham had this vision in his early days. I know the story is partly told in the Old Testament, but it's very clearly told in the Quran that he, when he was young, had this discussion with his people, saying to them that, well, what are you worshiping? And if you are worshiping the planets or the stars, I doubt that they can be the limit of our minds. The true God is beyond all that. And he said, okay, I will try it. And he looked to the star and said, wow, you are funkling and beautiful. I will take you as my God and guidance. And then when the star went away, he couldn't see it. He said, what's this God that actually vanishes? And then when he saw the moon, he went to say the same. And he said, what is this God that vanishes? And the same with the sun. If you believe the sun is the God, well, the sun is limited. And even though it goes somewhere else to shine over some other places, a true God is not like that. He doesn't just leave the scene and become obscure and become ununderstandable. The creator of everything is, by definite, the one who is beyond all that, even beyond the limit of my imagination. Otherwise, I would have been that God. And so, this argument of his, he said, I will turn my face to the one who created life and earth, and I will pray to that God in total, what can you say, adherence and submission. So, I will turn my face to that God that's beyond everything. And this idea is what the Jewish has been fighting for in their core. I know they've also gone in many, many directions and fighting inwards, and oh my God, so many troubles with their ways of thinking. I've met and I've seen, I've followed, and I have respect, but my God, it's complicated if you want to live Jewish, really Jewish. And the Jewish tells me that themselves. I cannot live really Jewish because it's more complicated than you think. And if you go to the Christians, you find that same fight for the one God. They want to change the pagans and the people with less beliefs and bad beliefs into the one true belief. And I see that as a heightening of the human mind and soul. So when they went to Latin America to change those people, okay, they maybe misused them along the way. I understand that historic tragedy as well, and that's bad, and that sheds a very negative light on these three religions. But at the same time, there were missionaries who went all alone into the jungles, into Africa, into many places, driven by their faith to convert people to know the one God, to know the Savior, to know the way that can lead them out of despair and being abandoned. So they fight for it. And the same with the Muslims. Oh my God, maybe the strongest radical ideology among the three is the Quran, because it keeps repeating on each page the name and voice of the one God, and it says this is the only and one truth. And it doesn't care. It just criticizes both the Christians, the Jewish, and the secular and whatever, and say, come push me back if you can. You will never be able to. And this is the ongoing fight as I see it from distance today. When I follow the net and follow the trends as good as I can, of course, I see that God's light just finds its way through cracks of all this darkness. It reminds me of this trilogy, what do you call it? The movies of the Ring, the Ring, the Lord of the Ring, and how greed can make people go in directions where they give themselves up to evil, and people just become this dark mass of animalistic pleasure and dwelling in things that they don't understand. They don't go and enlighten themselves or educate themselves. They stay shallow, and this is today being pushed forward. Like the most shallow, useless things are the ones that pops up to you when you see movies or walk on the street or go on the net or talk to people. It's like how to take on your clothes in the right way or put on the makeup. It's not exactly things that's gonna push the world forward into space. And you find that the most deep people are hidden from our eyes, from our minds. So we do not get affected by those people who sit hours and hours, years and years studying and doing research, not because they are monotheists per se, but because they are driven by a deeper understanding that we have to make a change, push the world forward. There's a lot to learn yet. And so, despite all that, these monotheistic religions are pushing back and saying those are the type of people who should be cherished and put highly above uh, in the social structure. That's what we call the knowledgeable people are the ones who should be respected and redeemed and walked with dignity around. Not the people who are taking the world in a total different direction. If you just can move your hip, that means wow, you've like done something amazing. Yeah, it's creative, it's important, it's part of life. We need that to free our energies. We need to relax. In other words, but to see that as the one shallow way, well, and it will push back, and there are always voices pushing back through the cracks, and in the end, that darkness will like fade away, and people will wake up. Not maybe all, but at one point we'll see the logic behind the monotheistic view and organizational power. These are two arguments, and in another talk I will continue with more arguments for why I think the monotheistic traits and ideas are the ones who are going to prevail despite whatever pushes them back, because there is a working God out there behind the scene, if you can say so, that actually just shuffles life again and again, if you look into history, so that monotheism never get done with. Never. It just gets in new shape, and it moves on.